this is like episode
21.
20. Easy, big fella.
Well, I just know we made it to 20 last time.
Listen, honker, just chill. Yeah, that's not going away.
Yeah, that's just...
Told a lot of people at church about that.
Oh, I know. I was there for some of
them. Yeah, 21. We, Dan and I were talking at church on Sunday about what to do. And I think Ryer had mentioned talking about trophies and scoring and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to talk about on this episode. We're going to talk about how to score an antler. We've got a couple of heads here. There's one up behind me that the waterfowl hunter actually does go deer hunting because that apparently is his. So, and I have probably a little different take, which maybe some of these guys will agree with. All of my antlers are in storage, and the one that I would bring is probably got the same amount of antler that's in that deer right there is G2. So anyway, we'll get to that a little bit more later on. So Dan, want to open us up with a prayer?
You got it. Father, as always, we're so blessed on this day. Thank you for the opportunity that we get to come out and in this church building and share our testimony, share the things that drive us and the things that bring us together. Lord, help us to be able to get out of the way and let you speak through us and use the power of our testimony to reach others tonight. Father, we love you and praise your name. Amen.
Amen.
So I think because it'd probably take a little bit of time. Well, let's just do a quick around the horn. What's a trophy?
Like, you want my definition of a trophy?
Yes.
I think a trophy is an animal that is impressive to you or to others in a certain view.
So, like, would a banded duck be a trophy?
Yeah, I'd say
Or a
so.
goose.
Or like you get a cool hybrid, or just maybe it's a normal duck, but it like has special meaning. Whether it's like you took someone out for the first time and they shot their first duck, because that's a trophy to them because it's their first one. Or like,
We hope.
or like, I don't know, just stuff like that.
Well, that's fair. That's good, Dan.
I would agree. I mean, I think the standard answer everybody's going to get is biggest deer I've ever shot. And if I'm honest, Gentry and I was hassling me. It was like, well, you're not going to take that 2003, whatever. And, the biggest deer I've ever shot.
Was not in 2003. You were living in Minnesota at that point.
Or 2023, yes. Sorry. Yeah, not even close at that point. I mean, I guess I'll use the padded answer. For a lot of people, it's the biggest, the biggest thing you've ever shot. I'll represent the fisherman. At least in my brain, I have my personal best, right? My personal best walleye, 27.5 inches.
I was there for that. I can attest.
You could have had a bigger one, but
could have.
we won't go into that.
The one that got away. Anyways,
Still disappointed in that.
So I think that's I'll go with the canned answer.
Sure. Well, to me, I don't know. I think a lot of people say like, well, I don't know if they really believe it or they just want to sound nice. A lot of people go kind of the route of like anything that gets you excited. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think when it comes to filling your tag, that's absolutely like a great standard to go on. But trophy to me is something that's a little more hard to find, a little more coveted, a little more exciting than just what you might find success with on any given year. The way that I describe is based on my own feelings, and that's like something that you come home with that is like you are excited to tell the story, and you're excited when you think about it, even if it's a couple weeks or a year or two later, like something where you just start thinking about it and it gets your heart pounding. So that kind of like Gentry said, it could be a big giant deer or fish or whatever, but it also could just be a story that was like a really difficult challenge that led to success. And, that animal may not be huge, but something that's like, it was so crazy or so challenging that like you think back and you're very grateful that you like had the opportunity, that you were able to get there. And I think for most people that generally translates to bigger animals because they are inherently more challenging for the most part to get your hands on. So what about you?
Well, what I want to say about that is hunters get a bad rap these days about that we're trophy hunters. And I'm sure there are individuals out there that's the driving force. They want to kill the world record whitetail or elk or moose or whatever it might be. But I think what you all just said kind of summed up that would any of us pass up the world record, whatever it is?
No.
Nope. We'd be shaking in our boots. The adrenaline would be maxed out, and we would do our best to harvest that animal. But at the same time, those animals are I don't even know what the percentage is. Gentry probably has a fact of the week.
Maybe that'll be my next one.
Stat.
What are the odds that you lay eyes on a world record right there?
Yeah. It's just most people aren't ever going to see an animal like that. I mean, they're not even going to be in the same county as an animal like that. So for me, it's kind of it's more than the antlers. It's my first deer, which I don't know if you scored it Boone and Crockett wise, it might be 25 inches. I mean, he's a 3-pointer like this, and that 25 might be being really generous. I'll never forget that. I would happen to be fortunate enough to be with my dad when he killed his last deer, the November before he passed away. And so never forget that. So to me, that memory is more the trophy than anything else. Ryer and I, in the last 2 years, doubling on turkeys, or 3 years, doubling on turkeys with my dad's old gun, trading off. Won't ever forget that. I shot an elk that, most people would probably be like, that's a nice elk. But never forget it. It might as well be the world record, So I think it's about, for me, the people you're with, the hunt that it's on, and it doesn't have to be in, some Western state or anything like that. It could be in your backyard, and the story could be insane, about how it all came together. So that's what it means to me. And I think when Dan and I were talking, the message that I kind of wanted to convey out of this is that, number one, we're not all trophy hunters. The vast majority of us are not trophy hunters. We would shoot the world record if it stepped out in front of us, whatever that, or catch or hook, or, not snag, hook, the biggest fish, whatever it is, we would do that. But that's probably not what we do, why we do what we do. And, for me personally today, if it's not, with Ryer or hopefully sometime in the future, my grandchildren, when it comes to deer, because that's really what I focus on the most, is that mature animal that's been around a barn. He's made it through a bunch of seasons, hasn't been harvested, that old monarch, kind of like the deer that Ryer shot. He's not going to score, but it's a pretty big deal. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, those animals you have the respect for. You guys have showed us that picture. I think you posted that one of that buck that just disappears and then the week after season shows up. Or whatever.
An hour before.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
there. Cool.
Yeah, that deer, again, probably wouldn't score super well, but that would be a trophy just because of the history.
Yeah.
And I've got a buddy who shot one in 2020, and I was with him. It was one of the first hunts I ever was able to film, and it was just on my phone. And he had been pursuing that deer just from like pictures on trail camera for 4 years. He and his cousin both on different properties had pictures of that deer. It was a really nice deer, don't get me wrong. It scored like 155. It had probably the biggest bases on a whitetail that I will ever see in my life. They both measured over 7 inches around, and at the widest points, one of them was over 10. So it was an unbelievable deer. Scored 155, so it wasn't even, it was with a bow, so it'd be Pope and Young. But either way, it wasn't like what a lot of guys would consider some amazing animal, but just the history. And then he had lost his father just a few months before, basically earlier that year. And so that was a really emotional moment for him. Yeah. So I think, not to speak for him, but chances are from all the conversations we had, he's going to deer hunt the rest of his life, and he probably is going to shoot bigger deer, but there's a good chance there's never going to be one that means more to him than that. So I think that's a good example. But yeah, it's also a deer that nobody in their right mind would pass up if stepped out. But you get the point.
Yeah. Well, actually, in our house, well, now your house, my house, and my daughter's house are does that are mounted. And people think, you got a doe mounted? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was, Ryer's first, Allie's first, Pam's first. All right. So there's does mounted in our house.
Yeah.
Or in the houses now. They used to all be in our house. But, to me, those are, big trophies in my mind, even though there's no bone on their head, antler on their head. So that's kind of the way I look at it. But do you guys want to measure some of this stuff or explain?
Ryer's going to have to do that.
Because we mentioned Boone and Crockett. That's already been mentioned. Pope and Young has been mentioned, etc. So by no means is anybody sitting in this room an official scorer. So
right.
Official scorers out there, if you see this, don't freak if we do something incorrectly, but it's the concept of it.
And maybe, so we've talked a little bit about this. I think both of you had talked about the history of Boone and Crockett, right? This was implemented by, was it Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what you guys will say it better than I did. Ryer, did you talk about that? About, this really isn't, it's more about deer biology and than it is tracking trophy deer, right?
Right.
The original intent. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we've got some score sheets here. I'll kind of give just a basic rundown, and then for the purpose of the podcast, we'll do it all here, but we'll probably skip over some of it because it does take a little bit of time to score one of these deer. But essentially, and you can look this up, you can download, print the PDFs, whatever. They're really easy to find with a quick Google search. But the idea is that, and so I'll use this antler here, which also happens to be the antler for the Wildbound logo. This is what it was inspired by. It's actually a photograph of this that we used and made a silhouette of for the logo. So it's pretty cool. This is a trophy for me, even though we never even saw the deer that this belongs to. It's a trophy for me because it's got a lot of character. But anyway, it's a good example of what a real nice typical whitetail is going to look like on one side. And the way that Boone and Crockett essentially breaks it down, and Pope and Young, to my knowledge, is pretty much the same. The only difference is that Pope and Young is for animals harvested with archery equipment. Essentially, you have a series of points that are labeled with a G and then front of the number, and it goes in sequence away from the base of the animal's head, or the base of the animal's antler, where the antler connects to the head. So brow tine is what most of us would call it. This is a G1, and then just following around G2, G3, G4. And then this, you might want to call it a G5, but if you look, it's basically just an extension of the part that comes out of the head. So that's just main beam. Mm-hmm. And so what you're going to do when scoring these things, there's a couple of things you do in this stepwise kind of pattern with the score sheet that don't actually contribute to the score, like the number of points on each antler. That's not accounted for in the amount of inches. But they do put that down because, like you said, some of those biological conservation purposes of keeping track, what do these animals look like? And then you have like the tip to tip spread, which is going to be the tip of the beam to the tip on the opposite side. And then the greatest spread, which is anywhere in the antler, the furthest 2 points across. So it could be the main beams, could be the tips of the G2s for some deer. It could even be, the tips of the main beams if they just go straight out and don't kind of wrap around. But again, those don't contribute to the score. Now, to get to the score, you're going to do first the inside spread, which is just the distance between the widest points within the main beams. And depending on the animal, I think inside spread for some of them can be from like tine to tine. It doesn't have to be between the main beams. I don't know all the details of that, but this is specifically for whitetails, the inside spread of the main beams. Then you're going to have total lengths of your points, which is just right down the line, all the points the animal has. And then if you have any abnormal points, which this one doesn't, that'd be anything that doesn't come directly off of the main beam in this sequence. And then beyond that, you're going to have mass measurements. And so what those are going to be is generally you're going to have 4 measurements, and that's just a circumference around the antler. The first one is inside between the burr of the antler where it connects to the head, and then the G1 or brow tine. Then you're going to do between the G1 and 2, then between the 2 and 3, and then between the 3 and 4. And even if you have a typical 7 point, 7 on either side, you're still only going to have 4 mass measurements because there has to be some kind of standard in order to like kind of score the deer comparably. And this, I should say, is for a typical deer, meaning that you're only scoring essentially the frame of the deer. So this would be a 5-point frame or 10-point frame, depending on where you're from. People will say it differently. But essentially, that just means that the typical points, those points coming off of the main beam in that regular sequence, that's how many are on one side. Basically, once you add up all these things from both sides, you're going to get a number, and that's a gross score, and that's just essentially the total inches of antler on the animal, and that's going to include like the measurements of those abnormal points. And then in order to actually go full bore for a Boone and Crockett typical deer, what'll happen is you'll basically take the total measurement from each side and subtract the smaller one from the larger one, I believe is how it is. And then you get your net score. And the differences are referred to as deductions. So like if I have a deer that's got a kicker off of his G2 over here that he doesn't have on the other side, because we're essentially just scoring the frame of the deer, that essentially gets wiped away. So that doesn't really count. Now, if you score the deer in a non-typical fashion, the main difference is you're going to include those points. You're going to have more of like a gross score as your final score rather than a net score with deductions. Is there anything that I left out that you can think of right away?
No, I mean, I don't think most any of the people that listen are probably going to be like, all like, for example, you draw a line across the main beam to measure where a tine hits the main beam, right. You draw a line across it. I don't think you have to get into that detail, but just the concept so that if folks out there that hunt want to, have always wondered, like, how do I do this? They can do it themselves because you said it. You can go download the forms and follow the instructions, and it's, you're going to get close.
Right.
But in order, if you wanted something entered into Boone or Crockett or Pope and Young or whatever it is, it has to be scored by an official scorer.
Correct. And then it has to meet certain standards. So for whitetail, for example, that's the minimum or like kind of honorable mention is 160 inches net for typical, and then the book score is 170. That score changes based on the species. So mule deer is a little bit bigger. A Coues whitetail is like 100 inches for minimum, and then 110 for the all-time. So it varies basically based on the kind of the average like trophy size, if you will, of an animal. And the way that you measure these points too, which he was mentioning with drawing a line, official scorers they'll put all kinds of stuff on here. There'll be markings. They do it all right with, protractors probably and all that stuff. But essentially what you're looking for is where the tine meets the beam. That's where your measurement's going to start. So you're not going to measure the G2 halfway into the main beam. That's basically going to sit like right here, right where you can see approximately that tine
Where it
connects
starts.
to the beam, where it comes off. So it's pretty straightforward. And again, this isn't professional. This is just like, oh, I want to know if my deer was a 140 class or a 150 class, or maybe has a chance of making the book. You can do that, because in order to get in there, you have to have an official score. There has to be a drying period, because the antlers can actually shrink a little bit after the animal's harvested. There's a whole bunch of different things, especially with archery equipment. They have to like look at, a lot of times I think they'll look at your weapons and make sure that the archery equipment you used like meets the standards of what's considered fair chase archery equipment, which that's a whole nother debate. But the gist is, you measure this in inches. All your fractions are going to go to an eighth. So it kind of sounds silly to my math people out there. If you have 6 1/4 inch tine, that's going to be referred to as 6 2/8. So everything is in eighths. And generally when we do it, we round down. So if it's like kind of in between, we'll round down to the nearest eighth, just for the sake of saying we're not like overscoring.
Yeah,
our
you're not
animals,
cooking the books.
essentially. Yeah, we're not going to try to add a bunch of antler, because that way, if we do decide to get it officially scored or whatever down the road, you're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And if you're telling people and they know what they're doing and you don't know as well, you're not going to be making yourself look like a fool because you added 10 inches, to a deer by rounding up everywhere.
I would say, if you are just so excited about this buck of a lifetime that you harvested, and you don't know a lot about scoring, and he's got to be 180 inches or something like that, just don't score him. Because chances are you're gonna be disappointed.
Right.
I had experience like that working a check station where this guy just shot an absolute giant 8-point whitetail 4x4, however you want to say it. I mean, he's never even going to see a deer like that ever again in his life. And his buddy was like, he's got to be 170 inches.
Yeah.
And I was kind of rough scoring deer at the check station for people if they wanted. And, they were so adamant that it was, going to score way up there. It's Boone Crock and so on and so forth. And I was just like, don't get it scored. Because what are there? Something like 12 or some insanely low number of 4x4s that actually make book. It's a really low number.
Yeah, it's probably
whitetails.
It's probably a little bit more than that, but either way, it is very low. I mean, that's one thing that Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young kind of doesn't entirely represent with the score, is that you can have, if you have a 160 class 8-pointer that just barely can hit that minimum awards, I mean, that's a buck of a lifetime. Like, I don't care who you are, the chances that anybody's ever going to see that kind of deer is very slim. Because that frame has to be so big, and the tine length and the mass, everything has to be so big in order to get there with only having 4 points on a side. But you can have a typical 6-pointer that's a decently framed all-around deer, and that deer is going to find 160 a lot because they have 2 extra tines on either side where you're getting inches from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to like just say that the size of the deer just in inches and really get a picture of what it's like, because you can have a deer that, like, I shot a 8-pointer that's my biggest scoring deer that I'm aware of. I haven't scored all of them, but I think he scored 143, which is an awesome 8-point, and he's got a wicked frame. And if you put him next to a deer my dad shot that year, they're very similar in size, and his deer scored like 10 inches more, but it's a 5x5.
Mm-hmm.
That frame, it's wider. His has a little bit better mass, but mine's wider with better tine length, but yet it scores less.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not to take away from his deer or mine. It's just to say that, like, people get really fired up and get really into the inches and that numbers game when it comes to scoring animals, and it never really tells the full story. And like he said, the caliber of deer that are going to be achieving these numbers is not something that you can just go anywhere and get. Most people probably don't even live in a state or a county that has deer of that caliber. In terms of this 160, 170 class for whitetails, if you look at the map where most of them have come from, It's pretty much all between like Minnesota and Ohio, and down south to like Missouri and up to Wisconsin. That kind of Midwest area in there, that's probably 90% of those deer.
No kidding.
Really, yeah. There's some that come from Montana and Washington and the East Coast and down south once in a while. Texas has quite a few. But most places, you're just not going to find that many deer that are this size. So don't feel bad if you're like, I shot a 130-inch deer, because 99 out of 100 places around the country, that's going to be a fantastic deer that most people are going to be really excited to shoot. Now, if you go to southern Iowa, where 200-inch deer are uncommon, but like if you hunt there for your life, like there's a pretty decent chance that you might run into something of that size. Like that might not mean as much there. It doesn't take away from the deer, but it's all relative, is what I'm getting at. So
40 times in history of B&C.
There you go. 40 times for 8-pointers that have actually made the book. So
that's nuts.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 120-year-old book, essentially. I mean, I don't know if it was exactly the same when it started, when they started keeping track, but.
So how do you go about getting a rack officially scored?
If you go on Boone and Crockett's, I just did this for somebody not that long ago. If you go on Boone and Crockett's website, you can, I don't remember the exact like buttons to click, but you can basically find like your state, or there's a list of official scorers, and then you find your state, and then it'll show the person's name, their location, and I believe their phone number.
Yeah.
So like I just did it for somebody that had a friend that killed an unbelievable mule deer this past season in North Dakota. And he was kind of like him and Han about it, and it was an archery deer, I believe. And he was like, "Hey, like, what do we do?" And so I didn't even know, because I'd never looked into it. But within 5 minutes, I had found the whole list of everybody in North Dakota that's an official scorer. And on these sheets, they've got like the official measure ID number and whatnot. So, if you want to get that done, you meet your drying period, which I think is like 60 days or something like that, depending on like if it's velvet or not.
I think it's 60.
You show up, schedule a meeting time, whatever, and they'll probably have one of these. You probably don't even have to bring one, but they're going to know the drill. They're going to know what to do. So you just need to, the biggest hurdle is just getting in contact with them, which I think is fairly easy, just going on that Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young website. So.
And they have scoring events too. At least they did in Missouri, where like people could bring deer in and they'd have official scorers there scoring animals.
Yeah, I think there's at least one in North Dakota. I think they have like a big buck contest or something, where I think they have some official scorers that go to that. And they do like awards for the biggest of like different age groups, and like girls versus guys, mule deer, whitetail kind of thing. It's in some real small town. I can't remember where.
Yeah, I just know they did it in Missouri.
Right.
When I was down there. So.
But you can go your whole life and shoot deer every year and never score one, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. This is just completely a thing where it's like, I just want to know, put numbers to this amount of antler. It's absolutely not necessary. There's probably, I couldn't even imagine how many deer out there that are sitting in Grandpa's garage.
Oh,
that
easily.
would be Boone and Crockett or
Easily.
Pope and Young that nobody's ever bothered to, mess with it.
Yeah, you read stories about them finding them.
Yep.
Every once in a while. Like,
well, one of them that I just heard about the other day, I haven't checked my facts on this, so I could be wrong. I saw it online, that there's a buck that's called the General. And that buck is debated to be real or not, like legit, like free range, fair chase harvest. But it is, if it is, which it hasn't, I don't think there's any way to confirm it, because it was supposedly shot like 80 years ago or something like that, or 60 years ago. I don't know. It would be like the world record typical. And I believe somebody just bought the real set of antlers for $1 million. And it was the first like recorded $1 million antler transaction that's ever happened. So look up the General if you want to see that one, because it's pretty insane. It's an insane deer.
typical?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, when you you want to tell the story of the Hanson buck that we were talking about before this, and
From memory, I will
that's
try.
in general.
So Milo Hansen from Canada, a farmer in Canada, killed what is now recognized as the number one non-typical ever.
Typical.
I'm sorry, typical ever.
Whitetail. Yeah.
He is. I got to see the deer. Got to meet Milo. Talk to him some. Kansas City at a sports show, and it's an interesting story because it's kind of one of them things that they were drive hunting. So in other words, you have sitters and or standers, depending on where you're from, how it's termed, blockers, and then people who move through the woods to try to rouse the deer and get them to go towards those. So it's usually associated with like heavy cover, like where I grew up in New England. I mean, it's 90% forested. And so anyway, they were doing a deer drive. They knew there was a big buck in the area. They make a deer drive. The deer comes out. And this is going from memory from like 1995 or something. So bear with me. I probably don't have it all right. But anyway, the deer came out to Milo. He shot, and I believe he missed the deer. They saw it go into a patch of timber, brush, bush, whatever, again, wherever you're from. They pushed that. The deer came out to him again. And I think he hit it a couple of times that time, but not the fatal. So he went into another patch, pushed him out again, and he came to Milo a third time. Now, if you drive hunt, the likelihood of that happened 3 times in a row, let alone 2 times in a row, is insane. And that time he shot him a few days. Matter of fact, the original rack has a bullet lodged in the antler, and it has like a wrap on it. At least it did when I saw it.
Yeah.
To keep the antler from coming off so that it could be officially scored. And so to be honest with you, the deer, when I first saw it, I was not like, it wasn't an oh wow moment. Like, it gigantic deer, but it still wasn't like, oh cow, he's just so perfect. If I remember right, there's very few deductions. He's, I want to say, a 6x6. He's just perfect. But you get different angles of him, and then you start going, wow, that's amazing. But like straight on, I was like, it's a big deer, but it's not like shocking. When you see the Missouri Monarch, which is a non-typical that was hit by a car, when you see that thing in person, you're just like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, that can't be real. That, and I don't know where that deer ranks as far as, that deer was not harvested by an individual. I believe it was hit by a car.
I'm fairly certain that it could have changed, but I'm fairly certain the Monarch is the number one like free range non-typical ever found. Scored 333.
Yeah, it's
so that's
insane.
You're talking about 150 inches or 160 plus inches over like the book number for Boone and Crockett. So almost double.
Yeah.
And then the Milo Hansen buck, if I remember correctly, was in the like 213 something, which again is 43 inches above what makes the book. So this is not a small margin.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's
he just comes out and basically goes down.
Yeah, I'll throw some pictures up of these deer because I think it'll really add to
he's insane. That was in St. Louis County, I believe. So on the eastern side of Missouri. Almost a suburban animal.
Yeah.
That area that's where the Missouri, it's near where the confluence of the Missouri and the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
So that's pretty vast country in there because of just the marshland and river bottom and stuff like that. So who knows? I mean, nobody maybe have ever even seen that deer until he got hit. He's insane. You just look at it like that.
It doesn't even look real.
It doesn't. Yeah. It looks like something somebody made up. Some AI thing or something like that nowadays. But yeah, that's an impressive animal. But if you go like to Bass Pro and go into the room where all the deer heads are, I mean, you walk through there and there's just some absolutely insane animals. They're all giants, for the most part, but some of them, just like the bladed character of the G2 on that antler right there, there's some in there that are just the mass or the tine length or the width or whatever it is just like, holy cow, it just doesn't, they don't look real.
Mm.
Well, in our shields down here, they have the state record typical for whitetail. They have the non. Obviously, those are all reproductions, I assume, but they have the typical. They have the non-typical, and then they had what would have been the typical record, but it was a deadhead, so obviously not harvested. And then obviously they have 100 other mounts on the wall. But
that's a good point. That's a really sweet mount. They have. I think they're all 3 full bodies right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, well, on that note, if you ever find yourself in Springfield, Missouri, I've been there once. They have the Wonders of Wildlife Museum, which is like Johnny Morris Bass Pro thing. They have, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like the Hall of Fame for whitetails essentially, and they have, it's like 100 or 200 of like the biggest whitetails ever shot, like replicas. I would assume most of them are anyway, all in one giant room, and it shows like the scores, like the scores broken down, like the mass measurements and the tines, and that shows where they were shot, like the county and the state. And that's just, I mean, if you want to talk about the mecca of whitetails, like that place is unbelievable. So if you ever go there and you're even remotely interested in whitetails, go find your way into that room, because it is, I can't recommend it enough. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing. And probably most of them are the actual animal.
Yeah.
Whether on loan or whatever, so yeah, it's impressive. If you want to drool, if you're into
Look at them and dream, right?
Big deer, then that's a place to go to drool. So,
would you want to do one of these, or
We sure can.
What are we thinking? Yeah, do that one right there.
All right, let's do it.
Which one? The one on the floor here?
No, Matt, yours. It's the one right behind you, Matt.
So I'll have to brush up on my mule deer here. This will definitely be heavily edited.
You need me to stand up or?
Look at this. Look at this.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna test our carpentry ability if that comes off.
There's a screw in the head of it. I wrapped this myself and mounted it. Don't mind the leather.
If you want it to score better when you take the picture, do that.
Yes. All right.
Can that be the thumbnail?
No.
So
in your mind,
sure can be. So for mule deer, essentially what you're going to do is same thing. You're going to start with a couple of measurements, number of points and stuff that aren't going to contribute, but then it'll go to the inside spread between the main beams. And then let's see, we got total lengths of abnormal points, which we don't have any here. The length of the first point if present, second point, third point, fourth point. And for mule deer, you'll have forks. So like your first point, if they have it, brow tine, same deal. Mm-hmm. Second point is going to be this whole length here.
Yep.
The third point is just going to be the front of that back fork. So instead of measuring this over again, you do the whole one for the second and then just this for the third. And then your fourth, of course, is that upper part of the front fork. And then you have your beam length. So it's, I don't know, maybe a little bit simpler than whitetail depending on how you look at it. We've got some good ones here though, because they're not super complicated. And another thing for mule deer, which I don't think it's not, it is the same for the whitetail. So your spread credit may equal, so the actual number that goes in the score may equal but not exceed the longest main beam. So if you have short main beams but you have a really wide deer, it kind of limits what your spread can do for your score. I don't really know exactly why that is, but
probably because some whitetails do this.
We'll do our beam lengths. So we're going to start right at the burr. And what I like to do for this, just because it's kind of hard, there's some tools that make this easier, but it's kind of hard to get it, like to actually get it tight in the right spot. So what I'll do is I'll get it kind of as far as I can in one spot, and then I'll pinch. Then I'll move up. Again, pinch. Move up again. Just kind of work my way up. We're not even going to worry about deductions. Okay.
Gross is, so that's one of the things that drives me nuts.
Is gross versus net?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, characters,
5 and 3.
That's most of it.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
again, that bladed G2 on
Yeah.
the logo. You
And
know,
that doesn't count for anything in this scoring
Just
system,
this-
which is
No.
a bummer.
Just this thing right here. Or
Right.
what am I-
Yeah.
It'll probably be about an inch and a half.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
What does it have to be?
Scoreable points have to be an inch.
Yeah.
It is a
Inch and an
Inch.
eighth.
and a.
So now we're going to do our mass measurements, which are pretty easy.
Do you want to?
The
Yeah.
first one, so this has to be the narrowest point between said location. So like this is between the burr and the first point. So whatever the narrowest point is, which is usually going to be closer to the burr. So this one's 4.5.
Game and Fish would be proud you guys got your
3 and 7.
Yeah, yeah.
tags
You
on
don't take
there.
the tags off.
All mine are on there.
I do have a few photos of some deer that everybody's like, "Where's the tag?" It's like, I know, I got excited. All right.
We've
We
done
do
the
that
same
too.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, put the
I mean,
tag. We got
it
put
was
the tag
different
on.
back in the day when you had the Kodak moment. You know, you got whatever. But since it's on your phone and it's just like, oh shoot,
What do you got over there?
Sorry,
He forgot.
I forgot. I think it was right at 4.
Well, and the other point too is that
Yeah, it's 4.
when we're taking pictures without tags on, it's not like we throw the deer in the pickup and drive home.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's like where the deer died.
Laying,
Yeah,
laying
yeah.
where it fell.
It's very obviously
before
where
it
it
leaves
died.
the kill site.
Yeah.
That's the most important. But you should just tag it first. Yep, you're right. Another difference on mule deer is I actually did this wrong. That was our 4th mass measurement. So I got to swap those. The 3rd mass measurement is the narrowest point between the beam and the 3rd point. So it's on this.
Right up here.
So while you don't get it in whitetails, you get a little more credit for muleys with mass measurements on or mass on the tines themselves.
Have we told the story of this deer?
No, we haven't.
Do you want to regale us with the story?
Is
while-
this
while
your
he's-
first muley?
Yes.
First
this,
buck.
This is my first buck. This was my golden tag.
Mhm.
Shot it in September. It was the youth season of my golden tag year. So for anyone who's not from North Dakota, so once you get your hunter safety, if you do it the earliest possible year you can, which is when you're 12, you can get 3 years of only whitetail doe tags. For some reason, they don't include mule deer there. And those are all statewide. Any of your youth tags are all statewide. So you can get 3 years of does, or if you do your hunter safety like a year or two late, say you get it at like 13, 14, then it's just when you turn 14, you get your golden tag, which is any deer, anywhere in the state, except for a mule deer buck in like 3 of the Badlands units, I think.
Mhm.
So it's basically a statewide tag, so people call it the golden tag. So this was my year for that, and you still get to, for your golden tag, you get to hunt the youth season, and then if you don't find success in the youth season, you get to go into the regular season. And North Dakota's youth season is the middle 2 weekends in September. And this was my last day of the youth season. And we had seen this buck probably 3 or 4 times before that morning. We knew it was him because I don't know how well it's going to show up on the camera, but like that other mule deer's down there. But he has like most mule deer, their antlers will start off really dark and then they kind of get lighter as they go up. I don't know how well it's going to show on the camera, but he stays pretty dark all the way up till his points. Well, obviously, like compared to other mule deer when he was in a herd of bucks in September, it was very obvious.
Yeah.
And this was we were essentially just like for the whole 2 weekends. There was this one herd of bucks, and he was one of probably like 3 nicer ones in there, and there were a couple small ones with him. It was probably like 8 deer total. And it's September, so they weren't even worried about does. It was just a herd of
Bachelor herds.
Yeah, and it was a Sunday morning, last day, and we were kind of walking out to this one corner of the pasture where we had seen him many times, and in the corner of this pasture, there was this deep, long cut. And it was like cut cliffs on either side, and then it kind of opened up into this this flat, and to the west of this, no, to the east of this flat, excuse me, up on top of these like clay rises, it kind of dipped into this bowl, and there were cedar trees in it, and these deer like loved to be in there, and there was no good way to get in there unless we had it was a an east wind, because we would have to come
correct.
over the top.
Yeah, you're right.
And we didn't get an east wind any of the days we were hunting. So we're like, well, I mean, we can't go in there, because any other way, you're either just walking straight up at these trees and they can see you, or they're going to smell you from 1,000 yards now. And we get up early in the morning, head out, and we see them feeding in a flat on top of these clay rises, maybe like 500 yards from this cedar bowl to the south. And it's essentially just a flat it's essentially just grazing ground on like the whole way from where we're at to where the deer are at to the cedar bowl. It's grazing ground the whole way. So we're like on our hands and knees crawling, trying to get in like a low spot or a creek bed or something, because there was one that ran through this field, and they were just progressively feeding towards the cedar bowl as the day got on. Obviously trying to find some shade for the day, and we essentially crawled all the way across this field, and as soon as I got into the bowl, we got within like 300 yards of them. That's where I was 250 at this point. That's where I was comfortable with my rifle. And we kind of just start, like, we get up to them and can't see them they're like 100 yards below us in these cedar trees, and I was like, what should we do? And the options were either wait them out all day and hope they come out in the evening to feed, or try and walk along the top of this rim, because the wind had shifted like 3 times on us that day, and it was actually good for us at this point. So just hope it stayed good and try and get down in on them. And we went with the latter. And what ended up happening is we were walking along the rim of this bowl for probably like 2 minutes total. And in this time, we were just starting to drop down into these trees, and I hear this big crashing, and I think it was probably like 8 of these mule deer bucks just come flying up, and they're obviously, it's a bowl, so we're on essentially just below the rim on one side. They run out of these trees up to the rim on the other side, and it's probably like a 200-yard gap in between us. And me and my dad, because he was the only one with me at the time, we just we lay down and I get my gun up or whatever, and I was using a bipod, and they do the signature mule deer thing where they all get up, and then they turn around, and every one of them does it perfectly. They all just stop, turn around, look at you, perfectly broadside like mule deer do. And I just can't find this one in my scope. And I was looking, I'd look through my scope, and I'd look back up, and they're still standing there, and I'd look back at my scope, and I could just see this one small deer, and I couldn't figure out where this deer was. And I finally I looked every other direction. I finally just looked up in my scope, and there he was, and it was him and this other nice buck in velvet that were the 2 I was between. And the velvet buck was tucked behind another one, so I shot this one, and he rolled probably 20 yards down that hill and never moved again, and that was my golden tag.
Well, to bring it full circle, we have a number.
Ooh,
roughly gross score 140 and an eighth.
There you go.
Which is absolutely a respectable mule deer.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, especially for a first one. So
heck yeah.
It's a lot bigger than my first mule deer, I'll tell you that right now. Is this a trophy to you?
Yeah, I'd say it's a trophy. It was my first buck. It was my first mule deer at that point. And obviously I just told the story of the hunt. It's a cool deer. He's got a lot of character, his dark horns, and he broke this off. I don't know if that camera can catch that. But yeah, it's a trophy to me. Obviously it's a first. It was that golden tag, which is special, to everyone, obviously. So yeah, I'd say so.
Will you ever forget it?
No.
I like the golden tag name. I've never heard of that before.
Me neither.
But that's good.
That's what everyone I guess basically just my family and a couple of my friends, but that's what everyone calls it.
No, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's what we call that thing. I mean, it's it's the Willy Wonka thing, right? You're guaranteed to get one, which is super cool. The one detail you left out about that was we had him. We shot a lot that year, and you were pretty solid at like 170 and 180. 200 was kind of iffy, and this is kind of the not proud dad moment, when I was like, he was out and yeah, those muleys were all.
Oh yeah, you lied to me about the distance. I remember that.
So I had the rangefinder out, and they're like 195, and Gentry's like, where are they at? Are they like 180, 185? And I was like, yeah, they're it. Take the shot.
I was pretty consistent on the target at 200 because I remember shooting that year. Now I was pretty consistent at the target at 200. It would be like it'd be like out of 10 rounds, I'd have like 8 that were accurate, like within like a however many inches of bullseye, like an acceptable distance. And then it was like I'd have 2 that were like a little further off, but anyways,
being off like 3
you
inches
didn't
or
pass
something
up
like that.
like 40 different bucks over the course of 4 or 5 weekends. When you had your golden tag, you shot this buck.
yeah, I wasn't gonna wait until the regular. I wasn't gonna wait until the regular season to go shoot a deer.
I don't know if you caught that look.
I didn't know.
I did that.
Oh,
Just to clarify. I had never shot a buck before either. And yeah,
I finally just gave up.
there's nothing wrong with holding out for something better.
Yeah, but when you've never killed a buck before, I started.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I ruined this boy. Because like I kind of try to hold out for a mature animal or something like that, until it gets to the end and then it's meat. But he's passing up deer that, yeah.
This is true. And I hope that my sons don't do what I did. What I will say, however, is that year in particular was unbelievable in the amount of deer that we were seeing, the amount of bucks that we were seeing. I mean, there was days where we saw 20 plus different bucks a day. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable. I also missed a deer, like at least a week before. I don't remember the timeline, but at least a week before then, which was by most people's standards a trophy. That's a whole nother story, but I missed a really, really, really nice mule deer. And so it wasn't all like just me being picky. It mostly was. Yeah. But I got lucky. I ended up being able to shoot I think it was like a 130 class whitetail on the second weekend of the regular season. So it worked out. I would have brought that one in, but he's shoulder mounted on the wall. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. First buck. So
yeah, that's kind of the deal.
That was a good one to shoulder
first
mount.
Deer, first buck, then we helped out
with the mounting.
I would have done that anyway. At that point, like even if it wasn't a tradition to mount the first buck, I would have wanted that one mounted anyway, just because it was a pretty nice deer for me. But I've only shot 2 deer bigger than that since, and it's been 10 seasons. So
dang,
yeah, one of them's right here, which I can flash that for the camera.
We can move this one.
Yeah,
this was 2024. So
here, wait a minute. Let me do it.
Yeah, hold it out. There you go.
Here you go.
It didn't look so good next to this mule deer, but
I don't know. The muley will fit inside.
Did he snap his left brow?
Yes, the left brow tines broke off.
And that would be considered non-typical, right? Didn't we figure that out?
I think that's what it would be. Yeah,
it's like they call it inline non-typical, or
something like that. I would just score it the same if I was going to score it. I would just score it like a typical. That would just be a G3, and I would just do this as the G4. It's probably what I would do. So it all comes out in the wash.
But the cool thing is like that's just a skull cap, as we'd call it, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way. This is European mount, which Ryer did himself.
Correct.
We started playing around doing that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you could see there's a little bit of residue from the tape that I never cleaned off. This one is a trophy for a couple of reasons. It may be my biggest scoring deer. I don't know if it will beat that 8-pointer, but it's the first Euro mount that I had, or that I ever had, and also the first one I did myself. So I'm pretty proud of that because I think it came out pretty good. Like I didn't even damage the nasal passages somehow. So this was done in a big pot on the stove in my parents' kitchen.
Holy smokes, you let them do it inside.
I don't know that they let
God
me.
God bless
I just
your wife.
Did it.
We did like...
we did a few. Yeah.
4?
It might have been 4. 3 or 4.
Because Sorry.
Go ahead.
Keep going with this. He did one in our garage, what was it, for the 2024 deer? So 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And it was in our garage, and we have this big, like, it's made for a turkey, but we do, like, fish in it or stuff like that, or we do turkeys in it. Just this big pot, and he did it in that. And this, granted, it was a bad smell. Like I'm not gonna act like I'm trying to be tough. It smelled bad, And it was to the point where it just like lingered in our garage for like
It was horrible.
probably like a week and a half. And he was like, I'm never doing a Euro mount again. We're doing a skull cap, or if you shoot something that great, we'll get it shoulder mounted. But I am never doing my own Euro again. So it's impressive that you did it in the house.
Mm-hmm.
What was the solution that you did? Like just borax?
I didn't even use borax.
You just
was
boiled
just dish soap and like
Dawn
simmering water.
dishwashing liquid.
For how long?
I don't even know. It was a long time.
Yeah.
It was probably
I
5
remember.
or 6 hours.
We were doing them for a couple of days.
Yeah,
But
it
now
was
we
quite
do
a
them
while.
outside on the.
Yeah.
We did one in a turkey roaster thing
Mhm.
this year. Or we did a bear, badger, and my mule deer.
Badger.
The mule deer, I'm actually mostly done with them. I just have to touch them up a little bit, so we can bring those in another time. But they came out pretty good too. I messed up the nasal passages in my deer, but
This is Dan's, right? This
Yeah.
is yours. On
yeah,
the
there's another one.
wooden plate.
That's a nice deer.
This my
He brought in like,
I like his brows.
yeah. Honestly, I don't remember the story in which I shot this deer, but
neither do I. Now that I think of it,
I think
Don't remember.
well, the why so come on
not a
now.
trophy.
No, this is a trophy because of who made it for me. So
Oh,
this is
sure.
this is a Father's Day gift from my father-in-law, and he's passed away. This is the last thing that he gave to me, and he made this with my boys. So
That's awesome.
It means a lot to me.
He's got awesome brows.
Yeah.
Love his brows.
dude, you should see the one. He has 3
Is
in
that
our
your biggest whitetail?
Not
No.
at all, not even close. He has 3
But
in our
it's a
garage.
trophy.
Well, I'd like to preface this first. You've lived in North Dakota for how long now?
Well, I was born here, but I spent 9 years in
so
Minnesota.
you were because you didn't hunt at all when you were. So how long have you been hunting deer in North Dakota?
Since we moved back, so 11 years.
More. than
No,
that.
since 2009. No, you were born in
We'll go like
2011.
15 years.
2011.
We'll go right around the 15 to
15
12 year
years.
mark.
Yes.
In that time, he has pulled a tag every year except for this past year. He has shot 1 mule deer in that time.
2.
2.
Is this it?
No, that's Eli's.
Oh, this is
But
Eli.
look, so
That was
look
his
at these.
goal
This
to
is
take
the
us
one
here.
thing. Just comparing those two, the same pasture, the same piece of ground. They aren't as similar as I thought they were, but
The frames definitely
yeah.
are. I mean, the fronts are a little kind of opposite,
Mhm.
but everything else, I mean, the beams kind of slant up in the same way. No brow tines, though, but
I
just
mean-
kind of classic
I mean,
mule
they got
deer
good
Yeah.
math for
character.
muleys.
yeah,
For younger muleys, so they got good math.
the same deal. Sunday, the last. Oh no, that one
No,
was
you
during
shot it the
regular
first
season.
week. Or yeah, you shot it during regular season.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Anyways,
you have shot 1 mule deer, even when we had CWD. Oh, thank you. Even when we had CWD and EHD and all that, you managed to shoot a whitetail buck every year other than 2 years ago. It almost astounds me because for like probably a 5-year stretch, it was hard to find whitetails down where we hunt.
yeah.
Just
well,
because of the
not down south there. That's just a different stretch of ground down there. I have this, and it kind of almost wrecked Eli's hunt this year, but because of that, like whenever I see a mule deer, it's like game on. That's what I'm going for. And we're
every year he
just
shoots a whitetail.
we're just super like there was, and I told you that there was a couple scenarios where there was mule. In fact, when Eli shot that deer, that muley buck had to run off a whitetail. Like that was just kind of
Which is unusual.
come. Yeah, they just come moseying through, and we were in a draw that wasn't that big. It was probably 60 yards across, but it was just like a highway. You know, that
You were
buck just
on
kinda,
the X in the
yeah,
waterfalls turn.
exactly.
There it is.
So, anyways, that's yeah. I wouldn't say I have eyes only for mule deer, but it's been well. I mean, part of the real answer that I would say a trophy for me is like the deer that I know that I'm going to shoot that year. You just get that feeling. It's like that's a shooter. I'm going for him, right? I don't know that I've ever just been like, whoa, there's one. Then and a second later I'm shooting. It's always like have a little bit, come up with a plan to stalk it, then go after it. And I think that's what makes a trophy, you know, when you can we've said this before. When you can go into a mature animal in his house and sneak up on him and do a spot and stock, like that's so much fun. That's having
Agreed.
stories. So, anyways,
One thing I did want to ask you is a split brow considered another point? So like if you have a whitetail or a mule deer that has a split, like essentially a split one, yeah.
split brow time.
Is that an extra point? Or
So-
Be a non-typical.
is that considered a non-typical?
To
What
my
if they're both
understanding-
split?
To my understanding, whether it's one or
Mhm.
both, basically, if you have, there's a couple different ways you can have them. You can have a brow tine that's basically a normal brow tine, and then there's a kicker off of it. Or you can have like a buck he shot a number of years ago that has a normal brow tine that literally is in a perfect Y on top.
Yeah.
My understanding is if it's the normal, just straight brow tine with a kicker, you measure that straight brow tine regularly, and that kicker will get abnormal point credit if it's an inch or greater.
Mm.
In his case, I believe you just pick probably the longer side of the Y, if there is one, since it's not really like distinct which side of the fork is actually the legit brow tine.
Oh.
You just pick one side, probably the longer side if I had to guess, measure that as your brow tine, and then the other side would be an abnormal point. That could be wrong, but that's how I would do it. Either way, in terms of gross score, rough numbers for just your garage scoring type guy like us,
Yeah.
the number is going to come out the same. So an official score might do it different, but that's how I would do
You're
it.
not going to get
because
any
either
credit,
way,
any more credit.
right?
Oh, well,
it's not going to change it one way or the other in terms of getting more or less. So that's what I would do.
Because the reason I ask is because he shot, and I think it was what you were describing, where it's not a kicker, right? It's literally a perfect.
Yeah, it's
two Ys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably just choose, if there's a longer side, I'd just choose that as like the continuation of your brow tine. And then I'd call the other one an abnormal point. Now, if it was an official scorer, they might just measure up to the Y as the brow tine and then call both of them abnormal points. I don't really know. So that would be something to talk to somebody who is more well-versed in this.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's arguably the biggest whitetail that I've ever shot, and it's the character behind it, and
Right.
There too, the story was phenomenal. Oh, you guys were there for that? Yeah.
No, I wasn't actually.
Yeah. Well,
You kicked me out.
Well,
Do you
I
wanna-
guess
this is in my younger days, 5 years ago.
for those of you that might be wondering, are these guys going to run out of stories?
No.
No.
Today should be an example of the fact that no, we are probably not going to run
I
out.
guarantee you we could each bring a random item
Yeah.
from our house that we've used on some sort of hunt and tell a 20-minute story about it.
Or 10.
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, we could do a
random
little
item.
show
Yeah.
and tell episode.
Random item out of our hunting gear. Maybe that would be, because I'm not going to bring a butter knife and be like, yeah, gutted me a deer with this one.
No, but I actually do have a story about.
Well, maybe we'll have to
We might
table
want to
that
save that one because
and do a show and tell episode where we each bring in something obscure that actually relates to a hunting story.
I don't have that knife anymore because I lost it.
I know.
Was it actually,
I know.
I helped you look for it for like 3 hours.
was it a
I
butter
still
knife?
look for it every time we walk through that part of the property. I keep my eyes open on the ground. I'm like, hey, maybe we'll see it.
Still don't know how.
That's why, in summary, don't buy a camo handled knife
Yeah, don't do that.
or a camo phone case. As cool as it might look to broadcast the fact that, I wear camo hats, but that you hunt or you spend time outdoors, functionally, if you drop it, it disappears
And
because
it's
it does
gone.
what it's supposed to do.
Did one of you guys lose a phone because of a camo?
No,
phone case?
but he lost the knife
I
because of
lost
the
the
camo
knife that I
handle.
carried with me.
My favorite skinning knife now has a blaze orange handle,
Yeah.
so never lose it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. He lost his phone one day when we were checking cameras, but it was like tan,
It was gray.
gray.
I think it's still the same case I have now, but I walked right back to where it was. So
That's also a tip my brother-in-law taught me. If you have Onyx, it's a handy app to have. Doing when you set a track, that's really, because I've forgot stuff. Like I forgot probably 4 or 5 things, and I've been like, oh man, I have no idea where it is, and I'll just follow my track and
Yep.
the exact spot, where you're within probably 4 or 5 feet, right?
Yep.
Best
which is
one
pretty
was
cool.
I lost my wedding ring in a gut pile. And I got home, and I think Pam said, "Where's your wedding ring?" And I went, I went back to the gut pile and just started moving stuff, and I'm like, "Oh,
There it is.
glinted in the light."
Did you go out the same night?
Huh?
Did you go out the same?
What do you think?
I would assume so.
There you go. You already did a show and tell.
Yeah.
You had it with you already. Look at that.
Yeah, Dad, you should bring your original wedding ring.
Yeah, I
The
lost
knife
mine.
one's better.
It's in the bottom of the lake.
Because I lost that bet there.
That's what silicone bands are for these days.
You just
Put
never
one of those
lose them.
bad boys on. And even if you do, it's like $20.
Yeah.
Just go replace it. Anyway, you were mentioning, not to switch gears super fast, but you were mentioning a Bible verse that had to do with this topic. And
Well,
I didn't hear what it was about, but I'm curious.
So there's only a couple of references, and they're not like trophy's not really the term that's used
Right.
within it. Probably the one that is I think maybe most relevant to me is in Ephesians 2:7-9, and it's basically, to summarize, it's believers are described as trophies of God's grace. In other words, we are, as believers, a trophy of God.
Mhm.
And so the reason why that kind of resonated with me is, and part of that is about it's God's grace is eternal, right? And so it's not temporary. And
Praise
that's
the
why
Lord.
I say that,
Mhm.
the memory is probably the trophy for me, as probably more, well, it is more than the antlers or whatever the animal might be, because that never goes away. Right? That's
Amen.
something that I'll keep with me for my entire life. And so some of them, I get choked up just thinking about it, because it's
Yeah.
like it was such a cool moment for any host of reasons. You know?
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of a stretch, in the Bible when we talk about trophies. So
Right.
I don't know if you guys came up with anything relevant to that or not, but there's not a lot.
I mean, I don't really have any specific scripture, but just in terms of like the narrative of the Bible, I think that there's a couple things that come to mind. The first one is probably that basically the way that God sees us, kind of like what that verse was saying, is, obviously there's some level of like, I wish that my creation was better, in terms of like, I wish they didn't sin.
Oh,
So
I get what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
we're not perfect, right?
Yes.
Very clearly, God's aware of that. And he's not pleased by the fact that we sin. Like that
Right.
should go without saying. The point that I'm trying to make is the fact that God still sees us as those trophies of his grace, as this beautiful creation that he loves, in this unbelievably self-giving way, enough to send his only son to be sacrificed by us. So even though we're not perfect and we're not all of the right things, we're not, it's the 200-inch whitetail, so to speak, of the whitetail hunter, he still sees us as trophies. And I think that like, to be a little cliche, like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and a trophy doesn't have to be something that's perfect. And in fact, I think for the people where hunting really means something to them more than just the antlers or the horns or whatever,
Mhm.
I think that these stories, which, as we've said so many times, are often riddled with imperfections, and the animals that are too, like, they're trophies, number one, because they're God's creation that he's blessing us with. He's giving, I think most hunters, at least ones that have faith, feel that they've been given an animal, not that they've taken it.
Yep.
We say take, kill, shoot, harvest, whatever, but in reality, it's being given to us. And also to say that, like, even when those stories and those animals and everything isn't perfect, a lot of times those things are still trophies to us because of how much it means, right? And how much we love the outdoors and how much we love God and how much he loves us. It doesn't, just because things aren't all right and all great, and it's not the biggest deer or the best story or whatever, doesn't make it any less of a trophy. Just like our sin, as much as it hurts our relationship with God, it doesn't make us any less of a trophy to him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the theme that
Well said.
that I kind of was thinking of. But
I have one real quick that isn't gonna stack up as much as that, but I've been trying to weave the story of David and the confidence that he has throughout. First Samuel is amazing, and just the highs and lows that he hits as really a young man, right? And so everybody knows the story of David and Goliath. So David kept the sword, right? Goliath's sword, and I believe his spear too. And so he was in 1 Samuel 21. This actually, if you go into the spiritually, or what's the term? The folks that study scripture, David goes and he takes asks for the showbread from the temple, and that was a big no. Like, you don't eat that, right? That's specifically for priests, and so priests gave it to him. He was ordained, not ordained, but he was he was selected to be king at this time. Anyways, so in 1 Samuel 21 it says, and David said to Amalek, which is the priest, "Is there not here on hand a spear or a sword? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapon with me, because the king's business required haste." So the priest said, the sword of Goliath the Philistine, who you killed in the valley of Elah, there it is, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. And what's cool about that is, when, I'm sure, at least what we know about David, that's the thing that everyone knows about David. That sword, that's what you did back in the day. He didn't take that. It wasn't in his house. It wasn't anywhere. It was in the temple, right? That was, God did that for me, right? And to your point, this is something that every one of us, God gave us this. He gave us the ability to hunt these animals, the situation to hunt these animals, and I think that's pretty cool. That was his trophy was in the temple, right? It wasn't mine. I didn't do this. This is yours. So
Wrapped in cloth,
yeah,
not on display, not on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Behind the ephod, which I believe is a very ceremonial dress that the high priest wore. So anyways, yeah, it's a pretty cool little, if you're not, there's so much symbolism and going on in there that we as non-Jewish people just kind of gloss right over, but that the dedication that he would have had, that's right. Yeah, it's here. And I'm sure, you kind of wonder, did he know it was there? I bet he knew it was there the whole time, right? So,
well, I think that's a fantastic example, because in that story, like, anybody who reads it, or David himself, you got to imagine in that moment was like probably a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
Like, I know God's got me, but like, how is this going to play out?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to take down this giant of a human that wants to, kill all my people and whatever? Not that we really experience that while hunting per se, unless maybe you're hunting a grizzly, but I would imagine as a human being in that moment, after taking down Goliath, he was probably like, I had no business doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was all God. And I think that everybody who's hunted much and found success has probably had those moments where they've been like, I had no business for like doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was you made that long shot, or something worked out that was just against all the odds, or like one that comes to mind was your elk hunt. Like, everything seemed to be not really working in our favor, and we just set up like on this spot where we saw the elk 12 hours before, and we were like, maybe they'll come out.
Mm-hmm.
One elk came out, never made a sound, came out exactly to the zero range of his rifle, and just stood there right before trying to disappear back into the trees. And it happened to be a 5x6 bull.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where it was like, there's no way that should have worked. You know, it was one of those moments, like even I could see it in my head like it happened yesterday. And it's just like, it just felt like God like drew that elk out of the woods for us.
Yeah.
Like to provide the meat and the experience and all those kinds of things. And obviously it's not as significant as David defeating Goliath, but it's one of those moments where I think we both kind of just were standing there like over this massive elk laying on the ground, like, we have no business being here. We're in a wilderness area. We're at 11,000 feet in Colorado. Like we're basically halfway, well, me more than him, but like, so to speak, flatlanders now because we live out here in the prairie and at least according to the people in the Rockies.
Yeah.
And, it was just, I think that's probably like at least a small fraction of what he felt in that moment. So.
Yeah, when God, you know, we've said this a lot. When you take God with you in any situation, man, get ready because it's going to blow your mind. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you know, everybody knows the story of David, but the confidence that he had as you know, like younger than Gentry, essentially, is what they think he was. He was a young man, right? Yeah. And ran at the guy. You know, like that's unbelievable. And then, yeah, if you want to talk, you know, his way with words, you know, like God gave him one of the most Braveheartest speeches before Braveheart was a thing, right? You know, like the confidence that young man had was unbelievable, and you understand why he was such a big deal. And the other thing, for all the battles and all the everything that he's in, I've heard a few pastors say this: there is no, like, he wasn't ever injured. You know, there's no historical evidence of him ever being injured, which is crazy, you know, when you think about the type of warfare they were in. But anyways.
Being on the right team goes a long way.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good, right?
You want a fact of the week? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought we did that already.
And we are going to do current events, right? That's why I wore this shirt.
Oh, jeez.
NFL draft does start tomorrow. NBA playoffs are going to, well, when this comes out, the series will be over. But the Timberwolves did just tie the series 1-1 with the Nuggets last night. Big win for the T-Wolves. Other than that, not much news in sports.
Fact.
Hey, that
was it. You got the draft.
But you get off on tangents.
I don't know
as long as we go past the Packers as fast as possible.
Really. All right. So, jeez, I gotta hide it here. Can't be sharing answers. What?
I thought you had this memorized.
Well, normally I do, but I just want to make sure I'm getting obviously I did a scoring themed one.
Oh, this one should be good.
What is the state record typical whitetail in North Dakota? What did that buck score?
Which is in Shields, right? I've read that plaque.
I don't know if that was shot or if it was sheds.
I'm pretty sure it was shot because it was.
Pierce County, so
well, where the heck? Are you sure?
That helps.
Where the heck's Pierce? I thought it was shot like over by Center or something like that.
191.
Oh yeah. Anyways,
I'm gonna say 192.
Oh, it's up by Rugby.
Oh,
they're all the big ones come from up by the border.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's Canada.
Canada. 185.
195 and 3/8.
Oh.
In 1994. Do we want to guess the non-typical?
209.
211.
I'm gonna go way low and say 205.
254 and 6.
Holy
damn.
cow!
In 1968.
The good old
days. Yeah.
Do we know the mule deer? Yeah,
typical or non-typical?
Typical.
Oh, that's got to be like, I don't know. I'm going to say 209 again. I think that's what I said last time.
You look pained over there, man.
It's got to be over 200. I know for fact it's got to be over 200. 212, 209, something like that.
195.
Yeah, I'm going to go way high. 215.
199 and 6/8 inches.
Dang.
In 2004.
I was 2/8 away from, I swear, I thought I would have sworn it was over
2004?
I think I've seen the photo of that deer, actually. It's a crazy big deer.
It wasn't too long ago that this isn't a great story. I think there was it would have been the state record that was poached, and they found it dead, you know, which is a crying shame. anyways,
I think they scored it and it was 211.
yeah.
Yeah, let him spread
It
his
looked-
jeans.
Mm.
All right, that's a wrap. And Dan, you're up next week.
Yes, sir.
You got any sneak peeks or what are we doing here?
I do. It's going to be my next to ice fishing. My next addiction in the outdoors is trail cams. So we'll talk a little bit of this early on yet, but I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on what you're looking for when you're setting up trail cams. And then I got some ideas for the significance behind it, and what that means. So
You should post that
buck winking.
hook, smug look on his face.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's sneak peek next week.
Here we go.
All right. Like, subscribe. And for those of you on the radio,
All the things.
Club radio.
watch the video
Oh.
today so you could see the antlers.
Yeah, and just for those of you listening, hopefully we have literally hundreds of people listening. The goal is to we're going to be at church on in
May 3rd.
May 3rd. Thanks. Yeah. So yeah, like and subscribe, all the things.
Get out turkey hunting. Things
Get
look
out
like
turkey
they're
hunting.
starting to come together. So,
Things already came together.
Mhm.
first time around. Turkeys
God,
look
you
like
got
they're
two
getting
trays.
right though.